Hey, happy Monday.
Yeah, it is a great one. Enjoying the
I'm looking
weather.
out and I see my magnolia tree out my window. It makes me happy. Spring is here.
Yeah, I was driving yesterday and we don't have any very early blooming things in our yard except for the bulbs.
Yeah,
And again, the cherry trees are budding out. It's just pretty
right. It's just
outside.
glorious. So
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
So, and it's the spring market, supposedly, right? And it's crazy out there.
Well, it's been strange for over a year. And
Correct.
if you'll remember, about a year ago, we were listening to what the economic experts were saying, including
Yes,
those from the National Association of Realtors, and we're
yes,
trying to predict what's happening. And it's been, for many people, a very tough year with the lack of employment. And there's been a lot in the news about people unable to pay their rent.
right.
And those of us in the business know that if people can't pay their rent, they're not the only ones who are hurting. Their landlords may be hurting as well because they have mortgage obligations.
Exactly. It's a cascading problem.
Yep. And I have to say that, at least in my city, the agencies, the private agencies, and the city government itself, as well as the state government, has worked very hard to mitigate some of that.
Exactly. And we've been looking at what we could anticipate going forward. Will there be more foreclosures when this all shakes out? What's going to happen? If you remember, what, 6, 8 months ago, we went and renewed our credentials for bank-owned properties, thinking there would be a glut.
Well, just it, not
Right now.
I don't know that we thought there was a glut. We wanted to make sure that we understood. If you'll remember, I got into the real estate business just before the big crash.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time at the beginning of my career selling bank-owned properties, working with short sales, helping owners navigate. But there's one big difference between that time and now, and that's that the owners now generally have a lot more equity in their homes.
Of course they do. Their home, if nothing else, their homes have appreciated in some areas as much as what, 10 to 15% in the last year,
Yeah.
based on low inventory and high demand. Supply and demand really at work in real estate.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I read an article because we were anticipating there'd be a lot of foreclosures. It appears that there may not be, which is a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
Okay. I saw an interesting statistic yesterday. It said almost 50% of the homeowners or property owners who had requested forbearance from their lenders are caught up on their payments. And for those who don't understand, forbearance is when the lender says, I understand you have a problem. Don't worry about it now. We'll figure it out later. I'm not looking for your monthly mortgage payment. Now, that's the upside. The downside is it still has to be paid, and generally with interest.
Correct.
In the 2007, 2008, lenders didn't care. They just foreclosed. There was
Right.
no equity in the properties.
The lenders had a big learning curve there too,
Absolutely.
because a lot of them really lost a ton of money by forcing the sale.
Mhm.
Whereas had they been more open to working with people as they are now, so much of this could have been rehabilitated.
Mhm. But also, people at that point were buying homes with no money down. There was no
Right,
equity in the homes.
right,
Now it's different. But again, almost 50% of those who've asked for their lenders forbearance are caught up on their mortgages, which
that's
is
wonderful.
a great relief. The other thing that I read is that banks are just reluctant to automatically foreclose. It costs them at that point $60,000 just in legal fees and everything else, trying to recoup that to foreclose a home. And since that time, if you remember, mortgage modification came into play.
Right,
And my gut tells me that more lenders are willing to modify a mortgage. So you missed a year's payment. Let's take that money, we'll put it on the back end of your mortgage. Let me recalculate, or we'll extend the time of the loan.
exactly. I think that was the bank's learning curve, that it was really very, very difficult for them to move that inventory and get out whole. They just couldn't do
Absolutely.
it. They just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Did I tell you the first thing I do every morning is sit through about a dozen news feeds into my email?
So do I.
And
We see all these cool things going on. So do I.
one of the things I read had to do with the CFPB. That's the Consumer Financial
Protection
Protection
Bureau.
Bureau. And they're also looking at the situation. They haven't promulgated rules yet, but if their past actions have any bearing on going forward, they're going to provide a soft place for everybody to land, if at all possible.
So let's take a look at what some of the options are if you find yourself in underwater with your mortgage. What
But I wouldn't say underwater, just behind.
Yeah,
Behind, okay?
you're hurting. Unlike the situation back in 08 to 2010, you really have remarkably good options because there's likely a good deal of equity in your home. As I said, if for no other reason than appreciation over the last year.
Mhm.
So one option is to sell it.
You could.
Pay the bank off and have some money in your pocket, rehabilitate yourself over a couple of years, find a great rental, and buy again down the road. It's a viable option that
I think for many people that is a good option. Actually, the first thing I would do would be talk to my lender and say, what can you do for me now?
Exactly. Can you recast my loan? Can you help me refinance it at a lower rate, maybe, and extend and add the payments on since my value's up?
Or something like that. Again, I would, if I were sitting in a consultation with somebody who is behind on their mortgage, one of the options would be, would it be best for you and your family if you sold it now? We're going to have people who would be thinking about downsizing anyway.
Right.
And this might be the impetus to do it.
To do it, exactly. So really, for me, it would be, don't sit quietly in pain. Ask for some help. Without being braggadocious, you and I are more than capable of helping them sort through the options. And we're in this to help people more than we're in this to get wealthy. And we would give you the best counsel. Perhaps help you communicate with your lender, connect you with a great attorney who could represent you with your lender, and be there if your best option turns out to sell it. Believe me, we'd love to help, but that wouldn't be the goal of the conversation. The goal of the conversation would be to help you identify your best options.
That's hard for some people to believe, but you and I know that's how we work. I've done it in the past. And we'll do it again, because the goal is not to sell your house, but to have somebody tell everybody else how wonderful we are.
Well, and listen, you know that old phrase, what comes around goes around. There's nothing that would go around in a positive way if all we did was force people to do something they really didn't want to do or didn't need to do.
We can't.
We really want to be a resource, right?
Exactly.
And that's where the joy comes for me. It really does. So if you find yourself confused by the current market, confused by the situation, or needing help coming out from under forbearance, let us help you.
That's it. End of conversation.
End of conversation. I'm going to go sell a house today. I don't know about you.
I will help you do so. Have a great week, Lynn.
That's a good one. I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.